Welcome back, everyone. Welcome to a question and answer special with Mr. James Bledge about the Open this year. Welcome, Bledge. How are you feeling?
Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon. Feeling good. Been in the garden all morning this morning. It's Sunday morning. Wife and kids are in watching the England-Spain Women's World Cup finals, and me and you are in the office, aka the sweat box.
Yeah, trying to get some questions through. We've had so many.
Yeah, they've been great. I've been really appreciative of everyone that kind of took the time to ask questions on Instagram, Facebook and Twitter, which is really cool. It shows there's a lot of people that are still engaged with it, which is what we're always after.
We're very grateful for it. Well, Bledge, before we start asking these questions, what have you been up to over the past few weeks now the Open has ended?
Well, certainly the kind of long hours have subsided. We've been... my mother broke her leg the week after the Open, so I've been up and down to Scotland and back up next week for a holiday.
Did she get a new puppy?
Yeah, she got a new puppy, yep.
And then broke her leg.
What's he called? Oh, God. I've forgotten what he's called.
That's terrible.
He's Ginger. It'll come to me. Anyway, so it's been a bit of a disaster there, poor mum. And... next week heading up to meet one of the apprentices that was working at the Open, Maxie from Prestwick.
Brilliant.
And playing with Nelly from Southernest, and Kinsey from the Galloway. Meeting Richard Windows as well from Troon, so that'll be next weekend, which is really great. And starting to get my life back quite a bit now and spending some more time with the kids at night. You know, I've been doing my garden, as you seen earlier, when I was hoisting a telehandler load of bark over the top of the hedge.
I arrived to the bungalow and there was a ton of bark hanging over the fence, wasn't there?
Yeah, the great thing about having the Open here is we have loads of brilliant machinery that I can steal every now and then. So if I speak nicely to the contractor, so that kind of saved me a few hours and a load of wheelbarrowing. But yeah, that's been great. But the course looks different now, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, unbelievable. So give us an update on the infrastructure, because it's almost all gone. Some of the big structures. I would say it's 80%
down now, it is. And underneath is left a lot of dead grass. But it's actually, I totally feel all right about it. We have got a rake, a mechanical rake that we've been bursting up all the dead ground with and picking up all the dead grass and letting the air get into it, and then we'll seed the bits where there's no grass at all, and the rest of it will come back. The seed bed's been there for hundreds of years, so feel completely okay about it. We've got a wee magnet that we buzz about in that Sandy Reid brought down from St Andrews for us during the Open, which has been amazing. Like, literally brought down one of the mornings off in the back of his car. It goes in the back of your buggy, and you just drive it about and you bing, bing, bing. You know, it just picks up
things.
Loads of O-ring, washers and R-clips and all sorts. And I think one of the questions is one of the weirdest or best things that's been left behind. And sadly, there's been nothing at all. I was hoping
nothing
Johnny would go out there and pick up a Rolex or something, but I'm afraid we have literally got 3 or 4 buckets worth of screws and nails. You know, so
not quite as exciting.
Yeah, but I mean, we have the shop still standing, isn't it? And the 18th grandstand's half down.
But also those things, the 3-story Origins building, the hospitality thing, was the amount of stuff that was inside those structures.
Yeah.
So like, just to get it to the point where you can start taking down the structure,
I know,
is a massive amount of work.
It's really difficult to get your head around the Open infrastructure, actually. And for me, and everyone says all this for 4 days, you know, or 8 days really, I guess. But it's true though, isn't it? What a hell of a work! A hell of a work from the end of March. I mean, at one point I think there was 1,000 people on site or something like that.
Really?
It's off the scale. I mean, when I say that, that's all chefs and waiters and volunteers and stuff. But I mean, it's absolutely crazy. And yeah, there's a bit of light at the end of the tunnel. And do you know, it's going to shout out to Steve Harrier and Kenny and Grant that do all the infrastructure work and they're in charge of all that, because these boys graft hard, and all the teams that do that. I know they'll never listen to this podcast, but from my side, I appreciate all the work they do. It's pretty amazing.
Well, an enormous undertaking to build a city.
Listen to podcasts, Sam.
Well, quite, yeah.
Unlike us.
But I mean, they built a town, didn't they? They built a town, and I always think this is amazing. So in Hoylake, just for context, I think there are about 5,500 people. That's like the population of Hoylake. And it was it was 10 times that.
Yes,
each
it was
championship
75,000 a day.
75?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, on some of the busier days it was 75, yeah, on the main championship days.
I mean, okay, well, there you go. Unbelievable. Well, apart from trying to get your life back and sort out your garden, we had our knockout, which was unsuccessful.
Yeah, we were coasting as well. We weren't coasting. We went to the 18th, but we were confident. You know, we were playing good golf, and we made a match, didn't we?
Flow with the course being close and everything.
I think these boys were playing were just practice badgers. They were practicing.
Different level.
Cutting his lawn and practicing.
So well done, Jason and Andy. Deserved victors, and the dream dies for another year, Bledge.
And we know that Andy probably will be cutting his lawn listening to this. So.
He probably will, yeah. So hope you got your straight lines, Andy. And talk about cutting lawns. What else have we done, Bledge, in Southport?
Oh yes, we visited the British Lawnmower Museum.
That was our Badgers day out, wasn't it?
Yeah, and we went with a couple of major trustees at the club, a couple of big boys,
a couple of the old boys.
Yeah, who got suited and booted for the event. Pennington. Actually,
2 people who have both written books on Hoylake, actually, Anthony and Joe.
Yeah, 2 of my favourite members.
Belter. Anthony wrote The Evolution of Hoylake. If anyone's out there has read that book, it's a great series. Richard Latham of Woodall Spa, he did Royal County Down, Muirfield, Hoylake and Woodall Spa as well, I guess. The Latham series, I think, and Anthony helped put that book together for Hoylake, and it's the best. It's the best book on the evolution of the golf course at Hoylake. It's fantastic. And then Joe Pinot, often seen in his bow tie. People, I'm sure, will have seen him on social media somewhere. Joe's also a club historian and wrote The Mighty Winds.
Santa Claus at Christmas.
Santa Claus at Christmas.
Spoiler alert.
You've ruined my... He's Santa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry,
that's sad. No, he's a great Santa. Mighty Winds, Mighty Champions, Joe wrote. So those guys, we've been talking about going to the British Lawnmower Museum for a while, and you happened to be up there anyway. So
yeah, I was up at Birkdale, but the interesting thing about that is Anthony actually has a mower that was in the museum. I can't remember what it was, but it's like a 60, wasn't it? Something old. But
I actually found that really interesting. I know it sounds probably quite sad for most people.
What was your highlight about it?
I thought it was interesting how little the main bits of the mower have changed since 1830. Like, okay, they've got better, and there's a load of other superfluous things, like, well, you know, the engines and the way the blades turns, but the blades themselves seem to basically be the same since almost 200 years. Can you imagine any other thing basically remaining unchanged for almost 200 years?
Well, it's fascinating that the lawnmower was made for taking the bobbly bits off cotton, not for cutting grass.
And it was just a bonus.
Yeah,
but you know, without that, you wouldn't have cricket, you wouldn't have golf, you wouldn't have probably football, you wouldn't have all these things that have shortish grass, or particularly short grass in some cases.
No, the funny thing for me was the reason why I was at Birkdale. I was looking at a new mower that's just come to market. We're not allowed to talk about.
Top secret.
So to see that in the morning and then see the Lawnmower Museum in the afternoon was unreal. And we've seen Lily Savage's leopard print pink lawnmower, fluffy lawnmower.
Brian May's got one in there.
Brian May. Yeah, and the guy who showed us round,
unbelievable!
Was brilliant.
He
was a lawnmower badger, wasn't he? We should get him on this.
Yeah,
but he was whatever you don't know about lawnmowers, not worth knowing.
Brian Radam.
He was great.
I don't know how you pronounce your surname, Brian. I do apologise, but anyone in Northwest who's got a slight interest in cutting grass, as I have a feeling some of you might out there, you really should.
Andy Farrell, you need to get yourself there.
Yeah, Andy Farrell, get over there.
Get a 1930s Ransom's Ajax.
Okay, well, before we lose all of our listeners, shall we start asking some of these questions? So
this is an open special.
This is an open special. So some of you have kindly sent in questions that are not related to the Open, but are interesting questions,
which we'll keep in
we'll put in the file
for the next Q&A in a couple of months' time or a month's time.
And we'll get them out for the next one. So apologies for not answering those questions, but fortunately we have a few pages of questions relating to the Open Bledge.
It's also worth noting that there's no beer at this on this episode. We've got loads, but you declined the offer of a beer, didn't I? So you've beer guilted me, beer shamed me. So I've had a coffee.
Are we going to lose our sponsorship from
I'm
Brewdog?
Drinking out of an Aquatrolls mug here actually. So
there we go.
Other wetting agents are available.
Right, let's start with Josh. Josh from North Berwick. Josh wants to talk about before the Open, and specifically we had one of the driest April, May, going into June periods. It was hot. All of the courses were absolutely burnt to a crisp. And then it basically pissed it down for 2 months. So what was that like, the difference between a dry May and June and then a really, really wet June and July in sort of preparing the golf course?
I think if you had to give me the absolute ideal, then I would be looking for a warm, wet spring and then a dry, a kind of wettish, warm lead up, and then a dry and hot from, I don't know, a couple of weeks out, and then we could have burnt it out. But instead we got it the other way about. We were sitting pretty for quite a while in the spring because we had a nice a wet, warm early spring, and everything was ticking along nicely. We were getting some great grass coverage, and then it just fell off a cliff. It did not rain the whole of back end of May, and no rain in June. So as much water, we were putting on 500 cube a night, trying to keep everything as green as possible. But the sprinkler system is old. It's coming up to 17, 18 years old. A lot of the heads just don't work exactly the way we want them to work, and there was a lot of the fairways were donutted, like donuts going all up them with the uneven coverage. So it wasn't looking the way I wanted to. It was actually, if it had been then, I would have been very disappointed. A lot of the aerial footage wasn't
and you
how I
had
would
to hand
imagine.
Water.
Yeah, hand watering. Yeah. But I mean, there's only so much you can do. We were hand watering all the kind of crucial areas. But when you're talking about having 9 hectares of fairways, where some of the coverage just isn't brilliant with these old heads, it just wasn't feasible to be able to do that. And we're clinging on for dear life. We're putting out our maximum allowance every single night. 480 cube or something like 500 cube. And at one point, actually, I was making worst case scenario spreadsheets on how long our water was going to last, and if it was going to keep going the way it was, we would have run out during the Open, and I would have had no water left to restitute, which was petrifying.
So we've talked about this before, I think, because it's something that you and I are both quite passionate about, but we have a borehole here at Hoylake, is that right?
Yes,
and 29,000 cubes?
Yes.
And that wouldn't have been enough if those conditions had continued.
Exactly, but we wouldn't have done that in a normal year. In a normal year you would just let it brown out, but we needed to keep it healthy for the Open and then brown it out. The issue would have been if we'd kept it like we did in a normal year, we'd browned it out, and then it just say it did rain, it would have came back uneven, it would have looked hellish. So we did the right thing. I'm really, really pleased about how we managed it with the water. I worked hard with Ali Beggs, making this plan, and I feel we smashed it, to be honest. And the proof of the pudding was in the eating when it came to the Open and the place was presented the way it was.
Well, it was actually amazingly even, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And Mother Nature always bites you back. That's the thing. We should take it with one hand.
Yeah.
But it always gives back, and it'll probably come out average because it ain't stopped raining since, has it?
Well, no, and I think we've got plenty of positives to talk about, but would you say that was the negative, really, the weather that we had on that final day?
Yes, aye. Yeah, there was a question that would kind of
Will Kelly.
I'm pretty sure.
Will Kelly wanted to know, well, if you were happy with the... Oh, no, sorry, it wasn't Will. Let's come on to him. It was half par. It was Peter. Peter Hancock wanted to know your worst moment.
Yeah, I kind of feel bad saying this, but you always have in your mind, people asked in the run up to the Open, standing on the 18th green must be like the absolute pinnacle of your career, and you think, yeah, it definitely would be. And that for me, you always have it in your dreams of what it would be like. And because the weather was so bad, I mean, it was beyond bad. I kept on getting hit in the face with Rob McBurney's umbrella, and I mean, looking at my team were absolutely soaked because we were given umbrellas and they were standing just at the back and they were absolutely soaked. I mean, there's a great picture of us all where like our ears are all slick blue, like coming out of the shower, and I just had this vision of us all having a drink out in the outside the bars outside, but the reality was there was mud everywhere on the Sunday night, and people were leaving in their droves because the weather was so bad, and there was not as many folk in the stand.
Harris and I were sat in the grandstand when Matthew finished. We went and found a place in the grandstand and hid under an umbrella. But it was everyone was just wanting to get back. It was
people were getting annoyed with each other because they were putting umbrellas up in the grandstand, and people were just like, well, I'm doing it, and then the folk behind you can't see. My dad took unwell, which really worried me, because basically at the end, leaning over the grandstand, Jenny was shouting, we need to get Peter out of here, you know. And Gav Speedy, legend, stole a Sky Sports buggy. And I'm not sure if you know this, and we had to kind of rip the fencing apart just to get him across the third fairway and get Dad out of there, because he was he was insistent that he's seen everything, you know. He's 84-year-old diabetic, he's got a hernia just now, and amazing that he managed to do that. But he was absolutely insistent. I hadn't seen him all afternoon, otherwise I would have said, you know, sit and watch it in the house. But he was just, that was his thing. He wanted to, and we got him out, and he recovered like he just needed. I mean, he was sitting up there all day and freezing, and so it wasn't how I imagined it at the end. It broke my heart a bit, to be honest.
That's a shame, mate.
But never mind. It's still a great tournament. Does sound spoiled saying that, maybe a bit. I don't know, but that's just how I feel. You know, I just really would have loved it.
I mean,
so
much work, so much effort, so much emotion has gone into it, hasn't it? From you for months and months and months. Mm-hmm. And then you want to enjoy that little moment. So that's a shame. It wasn't.
But it was still. I mean, overall, it was still epic. You know, it was still amazing.
Good.
So.
Good.
I'm not going to moan too much. No one will feel sorry for me. It's fine.
Well, no. Well, the question that Will Kelly wanted to ask was how happy you were with the golf course overall.
Yeah, I thought it was amazing. I thought that what you can do with having 45 staff is just unreal. It was perfection. It really was. I mean, the way we had everything, from the way the team worked all together with the new guys and the old guys, and what we produced in the morning and at night. I don't think we could have done any better. I really don't. It was great.
Good. So
it really was. Yeah,
I
think I'm starting to get some time now to watch it all back on the telly. I'm watching Thursday, Friday, which is really great. I've not watched Sunday yet. I've still got PTSD from that. You know, every time it rains, I go and hide in the cupboard. But we've had great remarks from the world of golf, and it's all down to everything the guys have done through that. It was just amazing.
No, well done, mate, and everyone else who supported you. It was amazing. But the second part of his question was, would you do anything differently? And there's the answer, no.
It would have to be. Yeah, I don't think there was. I mean, there'll be wee things we'll learn from next year, but I think in the majority we got it pretty right with all the loan machinery, the way that the volunteers had all their kit and where they stayed. I think everything was pretty much bob on. Yeah.
Good. And then Paul Hughes wanted to know your best moment of the week.
I think for me, I remember being really kind of feeling elated when we finished our last course set up on the Sunday, and Ali and I had to go up with Adam Newton and do a talk on the 17th green for a load of RNA people.
Okay.
And I remember I kind of almost felt a bit emotional during that, because I was like, and relax, it's over. There's nothing really bad that can happen now, you know. We'll be fine. Saying that with the weather, but I remember feeling like, this is it. It starts now. You're going to enjoy your day to day, but at that point the weather was beautiful. You know, it was nice, and I did see the look of absolute horror on the Met Office lady's face when she seen the radar.
Oh no.
Yeah, and it was her, as a sight in her face I'll never forget. But it was really nice just to have finished it, and me and Ali gave each other a hug on the 18th green. We're like, well done, we've done it. And I kind of learned so much during the week that I'll never forget. You know, and a lot of that's down to the Arnie guys. What we learned off them. Such a great team, the four of them. I couldn't speak highly enough of them.
Fantastic.
Really fantastic.
We've got a great question here from Samba1234.
Mm-hmm.
We asked a few questions. And one of them is about the data that you collected. So what did you collect? How did you manage that? And how did that inform the decisions of how you set up the course on a daily basis?
So there was two Arnie scholars, Adrian and Scott. So Scott's from Heswell, and Adrian is an Irish guy. I'm pretty sure it's a Dubliner. Like, it sounds like a Dublin accent there.
That looks quite good for you.
Thank you very much. They did all the stimping, moisture, clegging. So the Arnie did the stimping. Sorry, apologies. The moisture and clegging was done by these guys, and moisture was the same all the time. It was always
100%.
Oh well, you know, it was like we got them down to late teens at one point, but at one point it kind of just felt absolutely pointless. But you need to keep taking the moisture. You know, it was up about 30. But the great thing was we were 30% moisture, and they were still clegging. 115, which is probably as good as we would ever achieve for that, you know, 120 with all that rain. But the reason we had that was just that constant hand cutting. You know, we were using these Toro electric hand mowers, brilliant hand mowers. I mean, they are amazing. And the 15 psi, a proper roll off them, you know, 3 times heavier than a roller. Wow. And yeah, I mean, a lot of the data that was collected, we'd process that and make up our mind of what we were doing the next day. And does that lead on to the next question? Did you ask?
Well, yeah, it was. Did the readings show any trends?
Yeah, well, they definitely did. Definitely. Well, we always knew there's 3 sets of greens here at Hoylake. So we have the new greens,
yeah,
which are open 2, 7, 17, chipping green.
Open 1 as well.
That's the new greens. So if we say new,
that was.
So they were done last time, and then the open 1 and 2.
Well, they were only done in like 2012.
But they were done before these last lot,
so
they perform a little bit differently. So the new ones, the ones that were just done recently, they need a lot more nutrition. They're off the bat, they're faster straight away. I mean, and then you have like the 17th, obviously, which is perched up. So that was one to watch. You know, we really had to watch that. Didn't get too fast. I mean, so much so that these bunch of greens that I've just talked about there, I chucked a load of fertiliser on them the other day because they are generally faster than the rest, and we need them to grow more. So we need them actually slow down a little bit to bring them in line with the rest of the greens. But the other greens in the course are being constructed. We've talked about this before with dew ponds. So they were taking triple cuts, 3 cuts in the morning.
For those who don't know, who haven't listened to perhaps the previous episode when we talked about dew ponds, what's that, Bledge? How is that?
So I think
construction
back in the cold days, when there was no such a thing as irrigation around the greens, they would put like a layer of clay underneath to hold onto moisture. And now that's the opposite thing to what we do, because we can control moisture through irrigation, and then we'll have sand-based greens, so it's completely one end of the bat to the other. So these greens are the first to get disease. They hold more dew as well, and hence the reason why the disease spreads faster. They are more productive, so they grow faster, a bit softer, so everything you wouldn't want in a green. We got them all to the exact same parameters.
But do you require a lot of different...
more work,
micromanaging,
exactly that. Yeah, so I mean, the dream would be just to come and single cut everything, which we could have done if they were all the sand construction the same as 1, 2, 4, blah blah blah,
7, yeah,
5, 7, yeah, and then so you got a stretch of greens from 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 for some reason is not as bad. 12, 13, 14, they're all slower. 15 slower. 16 slower, 17, 18 was really slow, because of the grandstand round it. That was 4 cuts one morning.
Wow.
So, in an ideal world, and if we had very, very understanding members that could maybe go and play at Wallasey for a year, we could lift all these greens and then sand construct them and relay them, and then we would have firmer, faster the rest of the greens. But it's not an ideal world. The amount of inconvenience with doing that. I mean, in an ideal world, you would do it all in a winner, but I think maybe we need to look at that going forward, whether we do a couple a year or whatever. We've already started, I guess. So
yeah, it's a difference between America, isn't it, and here. I think we're doing a place in Chicago at the moment, and it's just different. Spend millions and millions, close it
Trump
down,
will think
rebuild
nothing about
it.
blowing up Doral on the last day,
But
the bulldozers come in when the final putt's hold, and then they rip it up and start again,
Yeah, but managing things alongside the membership and everything else is pretty important.
But
over
definitely
here.
a trend. A good question, that.
And Tom Price wanted to know about growth regulators. You mentioned about putting some fertilizer on greens to try and get them to grow at a different rate. So he wants to know if growth regulators are something that you use in links golf in general.
Yeah, people do use growth raters and regulators on links courses. Not as much as what on Parkland. I used them a lot down in Deal because we had 4 or 5 different types of grass in the green. But here, they've never been used on the green, so I didn't want to start mucking about with that. Next year, I'm going to start trialling some Atraxor, which is a seed head suppressant, just because we have a wee bit of POA, a tiny wee bit, for the start of the year, so just to kind of try and bring them in line, but never primo here.
So again, not everyone who listens to this is an expert in turf, Bledge. So
terms.
What is a growth regulator? What's the idea there?
So a growth regulator is a chemical that stops cell elongation. So the most popular one will be Primo Max, which is the active ingredient trinexapac ethyl, and you spray it at different rates depending on your temperature. So you work on growth degree days, i.e. the hotter it is, the more the smaller parameter between spraying it. So you might spray every 10 days. And then in the springs and the autumns, it might be every couple of weeks. Maybe even longer, 3 weeks.
Is there a top end of that spectrum, though? Like if it's too hot?
No. I've never... Well, if you're working on growth degree days, no, you could get super hot because you're still watering them. If you water them in heat, then it's going to make them grow more. So if it was... I understand what you're saying. If it was too hot and there was no water in there, then they ain't going to grow because they'll go dormant. But with your greens, you're always going to be watering them. You wouldn't be spraying growth regulators on fairways if you were drying them out because it would just scorch, because you get a natural growth regulator, i.e. the sun. It's a big believer in growth regulators for the fact where because they stop the going vertical, they increase density as well, so they're very great for filling in greens and stuff. So, but you could speak a whole podcast on that. We didn't use any this time.
Okay, well, should we move on to a slightly contentious topic, something that we had quite a few questions on, including Ross Jenkinson, including Chris Matthews and a few others, was the bunkers. So, for those who didn't watch the Open, on the Thursday, the hot topic, Alan's hot topic, was balls being under the face of a near vertical. They're not vertical, but pretty sharp faces.
They're not far from a right angle, yeah.
And having to use your putter in the bunker or whatever to get back to the middle, and then or come out sideways or whatever. And then overnight on the Thursday night, I think they were slightly changed, were they? So what was the real story behind that, Pledge?
Well, you
Storm
have
in a teacup.
100% storm in a teacup for me. I kind of believe that they knew where the bunkers were. It's the Open Championship. They needed to be penal, they needed to be hard. It was a defence of the golf course. We don't have as much rough as we would usually have had. The wind, there was no wind, really, was there? Friday maybe a bit windy?
Yeah, nothing really.
But it is the Open Championship at the end of the day. They've got their stroke savers, they know where they are. And it leads for great viewing as well when you've got Rory having one leg in, one leg out. I mean, he still got up and down with his second shot. I spoke to Brian Harmon about the bunkers on the last day, and because he still went for the green in 3 with that big lead, and hit it in a bunker. And I'd asked him at the champagne reception if he knew what it was or he was worried about it, and he didn't seem to be bothered too much about it at all. So I think you get the question being, does it? How do you feel about it then? Because I just kind of think that if we had bowled them all like we bowl them for the members just now, you're going to get people just... Big John Ram with his levers can just stand up and smash anything in the middle of the green.
Yeah, I'm slightly conflicted. I think fairway bunkers as opposed to the greenside bunkers. You know, if you're the fairway bunker, I really like it when people try and take on shots that are exciting to watch and also get tempted into playing shots that they probably shouldn't and almost immediately regret playing. I think that when bunkers are very small and deep and penal, there's only one way of extricating yourself from the bunker, and that reduces the ability of a really good player to show why they're a really good player. So, like, if you chuck me and Tiger Woods into a lot of fairway bunkers that are, you know, very small and very deep, then I can play the same shot as Tiger Woods. We're both just getting out our lob wedge and trying to get it 20 yards or whatever. Mm-hmm. But if we were in bunkers where there's a bit of shape, a bit of a difference of depth of some of them, and Tiger can slice a 7-iron off his front foot up and round and get it onto the green, and I'm just standing there like, holy shit, you know, that's why he's Tiger Woods. And I think that any opportunity for a world-class player to demonstrate why they're a world-class player should be encouraged. And I do wonder...
So you'd have bold fairway bunkers and then flat greenside.
I don't think also then that there's one answer to this. You know, I've spoken on this podcast a number of times. My favourite bunkers in the world are at Castle Stewart, where every bunker is different. And there are times when you can perhaps go for things and hit certain shots, but there are times you should never want to be in a bunker. And I absolutely take that point that in America often, where they have very thick rough around greens and the sand is almost like the sanctuary, they'd rather be in a bunker because they're going to get up and down. But I think there are degrees between those two sorts of the setups. So the only other thing I would say is, if the bunkers stop you taking on heroic shots as you approach a green. So an example would be that 18th. You know, that 18th is 610, 15 yards, something like that, doglegging round out of bounds. To hit the fairway in the first place requires a bloody good drive. And a lot of people chose not to take on the fairway at all off the tee and played left and played it as a 3-shotter. Well, the amount of risk to go for the green in 2, and the most likely place that you're going to end up is a bunker. And I'm sorry, anyway, I don't really buy the thing that, you know, if you're trying to get your ball 620 odd yards and you end up in a bunker, there's no golfer in the world who's good enough to avoid that bunker. Like, you either go in the bunker or you don't go in the bunker, but the degree of probability says that there's a good chance you'll end up in the bunker, even if you are Ben Hogan. You know, like, no one is so good that's over a 300-yard shot they can avoid a bunker. It's when the ball's running along the ground, it might happen or it might not, but if the bunker means that you are not going to take on that shot in the first place, so that you almost force people to playing this as a 3-shot hole, then I think that makes it slightly less interesting. So I think it was a great decision, personally, to make them slightly more playable on the Friday and onwards, because if it had just carried on with Rory and Rahman, whoever it was, who was just hacking out sideways of the bunkers on 18, then no one would have gone for that green in 2. They only would have played this as a 3-shot hole, in my opinion. And what made that hole interesting on balance was the fact that some people chose to play it as a 3-shot hole, and some people tried to play it as a 2-shot hole.
And there were a few eagles, and Brian Harman made eagle on it, didn't he?
Yeah, and I mean, you've got to hit
the shortest player,
amazing shots to do that. But if the reward for an amazing shot is an unplayable 3rd shot, then why would you take it on in the first place? I
mean, there's 150 people playing a day, there's 80 odd bunkers out there, there's going to be bunkers hit. There was loads of shots where the ball was in the middle of the bunker. It was just, and I still believe, it was such a storm in a teacup for me, because when we shaped them, I mean, we literally put them up one rivet. In fact, no one would even have known about it had, like, I don't know, some journalist or whatever's heard something, and then it's spread, and the next thing it's like media just love to get a story, and they're going on as if we've like rebuilt the bunkers, and it's like we've done nothing to them. We do, but there's no difference to that in changing heights of cutting greens or fertilising bits or pieces here or there. I mean, we literally do overnight changes agronomy wise as well. So you would still get balls rolling up to the edge even when they're bold. When we have them super bold just now, like we do for the members.
Absolutely.
We had you the other night in our foursomes match. I had a beautiful drive up the first ever one. I mean, this thing, considering it was a beautiful draw. It must have been 280, I think. I left you 80 yards, 84 yards.
It was normal 220, definitely.
It was, and I left you 84 yards, and you put me in the bunker. But the bunkers are beautifully bold just now. It was right up against the face.
Yeah, well, exactly, and this is the thing. I think we're just talking about degrees of the same thing.
Just over the top. I think they just
of course you can
have big time.
You can always have a bad lie in the bunker. So the way they played for the following days, I thought that was perfect.
But that's what I'm saying. There was still boys getting up against the face like they would when they were bold. But with us, with the members, we make them super bold and we make them slick, whereas we were tooth raking them with little plastic members. But I mean, a lot of people don't know this, but we raked the bunkers with the same rakes as the members use, the wee plastic ones. Yeah, they did the best job. But the bunkers were meticulous. I mean, Jesus, they spent more time doing these 80 bunkers with 6 people to get them perfect than anything. And the boys did an amazing job.
No, well, fantastic.
It'd be interesting future opens to see. I mean, bunkers, Christ almighty, it's a hazard. You shouldn't be in them anyway. So if you're in them, then stuff it. I don't care. I just think a lot of them are pampered when it comes to stuff like that. They know where they are. It is a hazard.
Of course.
You couldn't even rake them back in the day. You know what I mean? You would be just full of footprints and all sorts of stuff. And
should we move on to an even more contentious? Well, from one form of sand to another. I'm almost scared asking this. There's been a bit of press, shall we say, Bledge, on social media and other podcast outlets on sand scrapes. I know you're a keen advocate of sand scrapes. Grant Peters wanted to know what your opinion was on some American media outlets who have perhaps a slightly lower opinion of sand scrapes than you might. What would you say to them?
I know the exact one you're talking about because I was asked to go and talk on their podcast, and I've declined for just now. I feel that people need to understand the facts, get the facts right. I mean, these guys haven't even visited this place, as far as I know. Am I right in saying that?
I wouldn't know exactly, but I don't think
they were here to see them. And also, I mean, Martin Ebert didn't do these sand scrapes. He only did he designed the ones in 17, but we've got sand scrapes right the way along the coast that look beautiful. The latest one we've done in front of the 7th tee doesn't look quite right yet, granted, because we've only just done it, like literally just done it. These sand scrapes take years to blend in. The ones at Deal we've got are only starting to look good now. They need to blow around the place. They need to blow out of the intended area. They need to blow up. They need to collinate with fescues, marm grasses, and if you're really lucky in a lot of places, sea limes and stuff. You know, it takes a while. Rome wasn't built in a day, and I think that they were quite harsh with some of the stuff they're saying, that they look contrived, etc. But of course they will when they're first constructed. You know, it takes time, and I can see that the ones on the left hand side of Open 12 and 13 look awesome now, and they're the oldest ones.
Yeah. I would agree with that, actually. The ones to the left of in Open 12, that one looks particularly good, and that used to be a gorse bush, and it used to be when the gorse bush was removed, because this was before you joined. When the gorse bush was removed, you'd stand on that green, and I think that hole is called D, and you couldn't see the D estuary at all, but now you can, because it's come down a bit and it looks great because it's natural.
It was one of our old greenkeepers, Chris Moores, that did that. Very handy in a digger and a tilt rotate. So yeah, that's not Martin Ebert design. Rob Griffiths, our farming contractor, done the ones along along with the 14th. I mean, he's coming back next year. We're ripping more gorse out of there because the gorse is overtaking the dunes. We don't want that. And yes, I've sent Rob loads of pictures and we'll work together to try and make them more Rosa Penna or Sand Hills.
Yeah, Sandy Hills is... but I think the interesting thing there is... I might be completely wrong here, but I remember talking to Clyde, I think, about it, and there's loads of open sand that they sort of routed the holes around. So
it's probably been like that forever.
Yeah. So the sand scrapes in a lot of cases, some of them were, but not all of the sand scrapes were created to be the hazards on the holes after the holes were laid out. It was quite the reverse. The holes were built around the sand scrapes, just as the golf courses would have been 150 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, this place would have looked like this a couple of 100 years ago. There'd be open sand everywhere. But the other thing is, the biggest bits of open sand to the left of 14. We used them for mining sand. We needed to get thousands of tons worth of sand to use for top dressing. So that's why they're as open as that. But looking from the clubhouse, they look magnificent.
I've talked about Skibo as well. I'm perhaps not the world's biggest advocate for sand scrapes from a design point of view, but I think when they are incorporated, like Sandy Hills is a good example there. Sorry, not Sandy Hills, St Patrick's at Rosapenna, but also somewhere like Skibo Castle. Skibo Castle. The reason why I talk about there is I think that's one of the best examples of sort of rough. And, there'll be loads of people who say you manage the playing surfaces and if you're in the rough, that's your fault. And again, I really don't like that argument personally, because I think that, no player in the world hits it 100% of fairways, especially when it's windy and especially if they're reasonably narrow. So, the fact is golfers are going to go in the rough. And one of the things they do so well at Skibo is the whole landscape, the whole estate, from the lichen fields that they have. It used to be covered in gorse, and now there's hardly any gorse there. You can't play golf out of a gorse bush. There's hardly any gorse. There's heather. The rough, you can. It's so long, it comes up to your knee, but you can see a ball from 20 yards away. You don't lose it. You might get a flyer out of it. It might wrap around the shaft of your club and embarrass you with the shot that you fail to hit. But you always find your golf ball. And where they have particularly low patches that would sit wet and they'd really struggle to get the finer grasses, I think they've used the small little scrapes, pockets there to sort of manage the landscape more wholly, and I think that works really well.
Yeah, there's so many benefits. I mean, ecology-wise, if you could list the amount of insects and butterflies, and we've actually in one of our sandscapes to the left of 17, we've got foxes living there just now, and by living in that sandscape, that means that they keep away from doing damage elsewhere. So we just leave them be there. So, it's I think people need to know the whole facts and get them right. You need to be professional in getting your actual facts right. I mean, Martin has only done 17. So it's as simple as that.
Things aren't as black and white, are they? They're not as black and white as often they're made out. So yeah, I think we'll agree on that one. Right, next question. Few questions here. Gav Speedy.
Gav.
He wanted to know how you relaxed during the Open. What did your day look like?
My alarm went off back at 3. I always made sure I had a shower every morning to wake up.
Definitely a good idea.
Yeah, it definitely is. Apart from one morning where I was just so bushed that I couldn't even see. There was one night that I had I remember still being wide awake at midnight and knowing that I had to get up at 3. It was just this horrible feeling because you're lying there looking at your clock and you're like, right, okay, counting the hours, right, if I go to sleep now and I wake up, that's 3 hours, right, okay, and then you'll see 12:30, right, if I go to sleep now, that's 2.5 hours, come on, let's try and get 2.5, and it puts so much pressure on yourself that you don't actually sleep. I remember Graham Beat at Portrush told me that you would live through adrenaline the whole week, and he was right. I didn't sleep through the day because I had an earpiece in, and I was waiting on any calls for... And it happened a lot, Nata Jacks, Just Stop Oil, all that kind of nonsense. So, and also we're living on site. if you did try and like get 5 minutes on the couch watching the golf, the minute Rory holds a putt on the 9th green, which is outside my garden,
big roar outside.
Big roar, and it's deafening. It's amazing. Yeah, so that was great. So I didn't. We as Gav knows, we all relaxed on the Sunday night. It was brilliant. We had a great party, which you came to.
Yeah, that was good fun.
Yeah, it was great. It was amazing. In fact, like the boys were great fun. So that was the kind of the final time I could relax. Yeah, but.
Well, that answers Andy Birchall's question of your average amount of sleep. It sounds like not a lot.
No, not much at all. The team were lucky enough to go back to their bunker bins during the day, but unfortunately for me, I couldn't. I just physically couldn't either. So,
well, fair enough. You managed.
Got through it. Just I think after 2 days of the practice round, so the first we started on the Sunday, so the Sunday before. And what I need to let everyone realise is your practice setup, so Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, are actually the same standard as the Open Sunday. There was no difference. There were proper dry runs for the actual big event.
So when it's a practice day for the pros, it's a practice day for you guys as well.
Yes, exactly. But we got it pretty much right from day 2 or 3 or whatever. But they were still as hard to work, and they were still doing the same things we did on Open Sunday. I mean, bearing in mind we had a team that came in that didn't know the machines, didn't know each other, didn't know the course. So even though we had the course walk on the Saturday night for everyone to familiarise themselves, some of them hadn't used John Deere Fairy Mowers, for example. So we had a wee bit of training to do there as well. But we had great guys like Adam Fitzsimmons, my assistant greenkeeper, was heading up the fairy team. So Matt Plested was on that, and he was bringing tennis balls to chuck at each other if anything was going wrong and stuff. So that was pretty cool. Yeah, we would do course set up until 10, and then have a bit of rest time until 3 in the afternoon is when I would start the RNA meetings, and then work from 6 at night till probably about 10. And then, but as I say, there was one night when I was out. What were we doing? What was I doing? We were gonna water one of the greens at night. We were gonna water the 17th green during the night because it was too fast in the morning. And we wanted to still give it a cut. We didn't ever want to get to the position where we weren't cutting a green because it was too fast. So how do we cut it yet still keep the maintain, not get too fast? We chuck some water on it. So the water was going to go on at night, but then I was about to get down to bed, and I was like, damn it, we've got these AstroTurf covers on the heads. And I'm so glad I remember, because they might have just popped up and fine because they were light enough, but what I had in the fear and the reason why I wouldn't be able to sleep was because what happens if it didn't have enough pressure to pop up and pop the AstroTurf mat up with the wood on it, and it flooded the green.
Shit.
Do you know? It got jammed, or I was like, damn it! So I went up in the truck and moved all them. Me and Gav went up actually.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure Gav, Fraser Peacock came up with me.
Got to take your plumber with you first.
Well, that's why I took the plumber up and we jumped out and moved them. But then when I came back, I was so wired that I couldn't sleep.
Nightmare. Well, it didn't flood. In fact, none of the greens flooded.
No.
I know we've moved on from that question about
30 mil of rain in the last day, and 2 puddles in the course, one behind the second surround and on the surround, which the boys squeegeed off, and one in the 9th path. That was it.
Did you have to have the lads with a squeegee ready to?
We did, but I knew that they wouldn't flood.
They wasn't necessary. Even the ones with the dew ponds?
Yep, they were fine.
Brilliant.
Not a single spot. 200 feet of sand, I'm told, by you. Is that right? Did you tell me that? I just
plucked a number from...
Did you? I've been telling everyone that.
Okay. Don't listen to me, Christ. But yes, there is plenty of sand underneath Hoylake. I don't think we need to worry about.
200 feet, Sam.
There you go. So Stuart Hope asked a great question, which isn't strictly related to the Open, but I definitely think we should ask it. He wants to know what golfers can do to make greenkeepers' jobs easier.
Great question. Everyone knows what the answer is going to be, isn't it? Pitch marks. I mean, like, no one repairs a pitch marks. Oh, I do mine and I do 10. No, you don't. Because if you did, then I wouldn't have to do 30 every morning.
Yeah. What about tees? So if you...
Picking up tee pegs.
Yeah.
Don't use plastic tees. Don't use pink chapel plastic tees.
What about when you break a tee in the ground? Like, do any of those things cause problems?
I think pick up the bit you stick it in with and chuck it away. Whatever, it'll degrade as wooden. And put the broken bit in your tee in your pocket to use in the next par 3. But It's plastic tees that are more of a worry, to be honest with you. Obviously they ain't degrading like ever, and they're just a pest. They really are. They're unsightly as well.
I remember seeing a photo.
Pitch marks worry me more though in tees.
I remember seeing a photo on Twitter or something, and it was they turf cut a tee and stripped it off, and there's just
nothing but tee pegs,
thousands of half tee pegs underneath the ground.
Yeah, all the ones that are pushed straight in.
Yeah,
just staying forever. Yeah, and amazing. I mean, divots as well, divots and pitch marks.
What about replacing divots? Because at some places, I think Portmarnock, Darragara, might get the rifle club involved here by a false accusation, but I think they don't repair divots. They send everyone out with a little bag of seed and sand. Do you think? What do you think's the best way?
If you're taking a Badger divot, we get you on TrackMan, you're -7 or something like that, aren't you?
Yeah, I just chopped the ball.
But that's good. It's good for me because you put down a thick divot, it's going to grow. But for little squeefs off the top, then.
That's the technical term.
Me and Tom Watson, you look up in the dictionary. It's you pretty much just leave it. I would have thought, little kind of things. But if there's anything that's worthwhile and growing back, it looks untidy if it's out. And we have an artisan section that are great divoters, and they flick out all the old divots and replace them with divot mix. So yeah.
Okay, well that's a great question from Stuart.
But please repair your pitch marks, everyone.
But let's get back to the
20 others.
20 others. So Colin McGlew, this is I thought this question was great. So he was saying he works at Lytham. I presume, I don't know Colin, but in 2018 when it was that really really dry summer, Carnoustie had the Open that year. It was baked out, if you remember, but they had the Women's Open at Lytham, and he said that it was so dry and so burnt out that it was really hard to put the course back together again afterwards. What do you think? Because it was so wet here, did that cause more problems, or does that make it slightly easier?
On the Sunday night, it looked like Glastonbury, but since it's looked really good, and I'm actually surprised at how easy this is going to be, and hopefully, and the fact that it's still going to be wet from now on, probably the rest of the year.
Yeah,
I have a feeling I can't see it changing any heat wave now. There's a good chance that we're going to be able to grow everything back really well. Literally a lot of these ruts, we can go over the Sand Pro and smooth them out, and then we'll take our uni rake across the heavy roughs and break them up and stuff. And then the Vrido actually does a really good job. The overseeder disc seeder does a really great job in leveling out as well. So I think we're primed up really for a top recovery, and I would hope that when everyone's off site at the start of September, we should have it hopefully recovered by the end of the autumn.
So is that when they reckon everyone's going to be finished, all of the infrastructure?
Start of September, yes. I'm heading up to Scotland next week.
Yeah.
By the time we come back, we should almost all be done.
Wow. That is
phenomenal
quick,
effort.
isn't it?
Never seen anyone work as hard as these guys.
Okay.
Good question.
Well, that was the other part of it, really. Simon Smith was talking about the mud, because it's very rare that you see mud at Hoylake, but then it's very rare that you see over 50,000 people walking around in torrential rain for 12 hours.
And buggies and all the infrastructure, telehandlers and tractors moving trailers around and stuff. We have got a lot of overseeding to do on haul routes, which is the areas where we use ourselves. All the areas up to Edgell, all the ferries all need overseeded, where the grandstands were. Some bits need overseeded as
well.
What
are you going to
100
seed
bags
with?
of seed or something.
Fescue? Or
fescue on all the native areas, and on the haul routes we put ryegrass in. Fescue just wouldn't last a second.
Yeah. Oh, because we get a lot of traffic here, don't we?
It's literally 2 passes, up and back.
Yeah.
Not wide.
Yeah.
Enough to get a ferry more up.
Okay. Excellent. Well, Matt Plested, already mentioned.
Top bloke.
Matt wants to know, how do you feel now? Now it's all over. Proud?
Yes, definitely. Everyone told me you'd have a massive downer after the Open. I've not really had that, to be honest. I'm glad we've done it, and glad we've done it successfully. My butterflies have subsided. I was actually more nervous, and this is God's honest truth, I was more nervous about Jenny's 40th birthday party last week than I was about the Open. That is a God's honest truth.
And it didn't rain?
Because I was in, my lovely assistants, Louisa, Gillian, there's no point naming them, they don't listen to this, helped me with Jen's 40th, which could have been a disaster when you're organising a surprise party, as you well know. But with the Open, I had 45 guys that were helping me constantly, which was amazing. So we took a 45th share of the management each. You know, I didn't do it all my own. It's really important to know that.
Yeah. Well, where are they now? Do you still keep in touch with all of your volunteers?
Yes, we had a WhatsApp group, which was really cool, and we all still keep in touch. There was obviously loads of guys that I'd never met before, and I think all the Open courses volunteers from the Open courses all made great friends, which is super. And I think the nicest story that's come out of it, and we have to kind of wish them congratulations.
Very much so.
Yep, 2 of our volunteers will start. Graham Roberts was successful with
former guest on the podcast.
Yes, he was. Yeah.
In fact, that podcast that was recorded over about 5 different rooms as we kept having to move locations in the hotel at BTME. Graham Roberts and Greg Easton were both. One was the course manager of Hailing, and one was the deputy course manager. Well, now Greg is, of course, has he started at George's?
Yeah, he started first week last week.
Course manager of Royal St George's, Greg Easton, and his successor was Graham. So he's been promoted to the top job there. I love Hailing. I think a lot of people know that, but I'm excited to see how he continues Greg's good work. Really
amazing, actually, for that to happen, and both boys are just absolutely in love with their job, you know, and so that's been a super kind of development since.
Yeah. And another Greg as well.
And Greg Compton, who's one of the guys who's lucky enough to win the apprentice competition.
Yeah. Straight into Parkstown.
Straight out of Compton.
Straight out of Compton, straight into Compton.
Yeah, and he got a job at Parkstone, yeah. Parkstone. And obviously Tom Brearley, the deputy at Parkstone, was one of the volunteers here, so made that contact straight away. Tom seen his work firsthand. I mean, you couldn't pull Greg out of the 17th front bunker on Sunday. He kept raking it. It was like, Greg, what are you doing? He says, I just want to just keep working. He literally said that to me. He was like, and then he partied all night with us. I mean, I think it finished at midnight, and then drove, because he wasn't drinking, he drove back down to King's Lynn, because he had to work the next day. So he stayed up all night. He drove from midnight till 4 or 5 in the morning, and then went straight to work at King's Lynn.
You're joking?
No. So his work was brilliant throughout the week. It was really great, and I'm so happy that he got in, and there's a beautiful story out of that he's going to develop his career at Parkstone, which is one of my favourite golf courses, and two of my favourite people down there, Grant Peters and Tom Brearley. I mean, he's going to love working there. It's beautiful in Poole. Harry Redknapp lives there. What's it called? Sandbanks.
Yeah.
Stunning area.
Now, I remember after... So I was down there, this is a complete digression, after the Open at Royal St George's. And do you remember that week was so hot?
Yes.
That was the hottest week of the year. Yeah. And Harris had come back home, and I was just pootling along by myself and going along that south coast. And I remember there's a pub, I think, down by Poole. I think it's called the Pig, something like that. And you just go and have a swim in the sea afterwards. It was hot. Gorgeous parts of the world. Well, shall we round off one last question from Ben Scrivener? He said in a previous episode of this podcast, Dan Lightfoot, you talked about when you went to shadow Dan.
Mm-hmm.
What do you feel about people shadowing you, Bledge?
I've done that a few times, and I'd encourage that, definitely. So I'd love to do that every year, to be honest. I'd love to have a day where we have someone come in. And in fact, there's a guy who's just got in touch from Queenwood that's going to come in.
Very nice.
For a day in September and work shadow and see what we get up to. And you'll see kind of two polar opposite golf clubs, really, Queenwood and us, and Stevie Richardson. I mean, I would love to go and work shadow Stevie, to be honest with you, still, because Stevie I hold in the highest regards. I mean, he produces things that I would produce in my dreams as well, you know, whether it be the his facilities for his staff. He's just built a gym. I mean, Queenwood is the single most impressive golf course I've ever seen inside and out.
Wow.
It's unbelievable. It's like getting dropped in upstate New York. You know, to produce something like that in Surrey is ridiculous. And I'd like to go and work shadow him. So I think it doesn't matter what level you are to go and work shadow. I mean,
so you'd have someone else next year?
Yes, I do. Every year I'd take someone every year for a day. Yeah, it'd be good. And we've done it before. Yeah. How about yourself? Would you? Is it something that happens in architecture?
Don't know really.
Do you want me to set up something with Tom Doak?
Yeah, I'd love to. There's I think that's the great thing about architecture is a lot of people have the same philosophy but different ways and different. You know, the great thing for me at the Open and the week before it is all of our partners in our firm were sort of in the country, and normally Mike's in wherever, building a golf course in Tasmania, and Clates is in Australia, or they're in America or whatever, and I spend a lot of time with Frank. And whilst everyone has a shared philosophy, different look at the same problem from different angles, often end up at the same result, the same solution, but solving that same problem in different ways. So I don't think that there is anything that you couldn't learn from shadowing different people, because I can only imagine that same point would be exemplified by if you had a dozen different architects, they might all arrive at the same outcome, but from a dozen different angles, and I find that really interesting.
It's very beneficial, definitely.
Everyone's got their own perspective.
It's great, and you can come away from a work shadowing with a whole load of pictures on your phone of ideas that you can implement at your own work, whether you're an assistant, a deputy, or a course manager. I've got one last question here I'd like to input. Cookie jar golf. And he obviously knows the answer to this, but it's good to tee it up. Will there be any films about the Open from a greenkeeper standpoint?
Will there be a
funnily,
film?
You should ask that. Tom Mills, a good friend of ours from Cookie Jar Golf, filmed an incredible piece during the Open, of which is literally days from being released.
Brilliant.
And by the time this podcast is released, it could already be, so we could join it onto it. But it's basically showing the life from my point of view from the setup, and then it goes into showing what life's like from my point of view and from the greenkeepers and the volunteers during the Open. There's a cameo from Fletcher in it, which is nice. And it's beautifully made. Tom's one of the best cinematographers I've met.
Yeah.
And for us to have this in greenkeeping is phenomenal, to show what we do and how hard the teams work and what a great lifestyle this is and what a great job. And I really want to put it out there so we can get more people into the industry and just have more exposure to the fact that it is a job. You know, like a fireman or a policeman, you know, it is an actual vocation. A lot of people don't know what greenkeeper is. I met an interesting guy yesterday who was super interested in my job, and he was like, oh, that's amazing, that's brilliant, oh, show me this, show me that, and he was loving it. And I said to him, what do you do? And he's like, I'm a flight navigator in a tornado. And I was like, unbelievable, like hero.
Can you do a job swap
level
for a day?
Exactly. And what I was like, he's super interested in my job, and people are, you know, I think people really are. Oh, that sounds quite a cool job, but to show them in a video form how cool a job it actually is. You know, I'm watching him, he's showing me videos of he's flying through the Mach Loop in Wales in his tornado.
Wow.
In Afghanistan and all sorts, and thinking this is amazing, but yet he was as interested in mine.
No, I think we all love golf, don't we? And you know, to have an appreciation of the courses we play on, so much work goes into them. So that would be great to
I think
see it.
It shows it really well, and I can't thank Tom enough, and for the other guys that were willing to be in the video and stuff as well. You know, it's brilliant, and I hope that we can share it and get it out there and get it the recognition it deserves.
Great. Okay, well, shall we leave it there, Bledge? Because, you know, you've got your life back now. You may as well go and enjoy us on a Sunday.
I'm going to be spreading bark in the back garden. You know that. You're going to help me, actually.
Living it up. Right. Well, thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you for all your questions. We're going to keep these podcasts coming now, which we say every time.
Guests now for a bit. Yeah, and I think we do maybe a Q&A every 1 in 4 or 1 in 6 or something.
Yeah, well, I think you seem to like them. If you do, let us know. If you don't, then you can feel free to keep that opinion to yourself.
Or even any ideas, any guests that you'd want to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. We always like the feedback, so please do let us know. And Bledge, thanks very much. Well done, mate.
Thank you,
You did
Sam.
it. You survived the Open.
Yeah.
And it was a great success.
Thank you very much.